All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and start the meeting since it is 6 o'clock, 6:01.
Dan, is our sound working?
That's where I just checked.
Recording in progress.
The owl is red.
Brenda, can you hear us?
Angry owl.
His name is Hootie.
No.
He's angry as red.
Oh, there he goes.
Can you hear us?
Brenda, can you hear us? Okay, there we go. Excellent. Wonderful. All right, so we're going to call the meeting to order at 6:02. We have an agenda in front of you. I would like to add the discussion of the Burdett Fund since we forgot to add it this time. But if I could get someone to make that motion, that would be great.
When we discussed the Burdett Fund,
Okay. Oh, good. Brett's here. That's awesome. All right. So all in favor of the agenda with the addition of the Burdett Fund, please say aye. All those opposed? Okay. We have an agenda. All right. Communications with parents, citizens, and staff. Reach out communication was in your packet. There haven't been any reach outs recently, at least in the last 2 weeks. And you're here for all here for Burdett Fund, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we're gonna keep moving. All right, can I get someone to make a motion for the consent agenda, please? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All of those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Okay, consent agenda passes. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is talk about the Burdett Fund. For the first time, and I don't know how many weeks, we have all three of our Pittsford members here. Yay! So, Brooklyn is new. She hasn't been to the board members before, so do you want to give your little spiel again about why you're here and what you want?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll just, is that all right, Rick, to speak? Nate McKay, representing the football club. We've been trying to campaign put lights on our varsity field for years. We were ready to present to the last school board. They resigned or retired. So we started over, came and presented to the school board a while ago. One of the groups of money out there is the Burdett Fund, which comes from Pittsford. So we contacted some of the people that sat on that board, got some direction. Unfortunately, it was misdirection because we went right from here to the select board meeting, and then we were corrected at the select board meeting that it had to come through the school board, had to have a unanimous vote from the Pittsford representatives before we could go further. So you're very elusive at this meeting because we keep going from meeting to meeting to meeting trying to get a vote, but we've been out and about, I guess.
Me? I had a family emergency.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do, raise $250,000, private donations, people like us, people with businesses. We're at the point right now currently where we have enough in hand and in pledges to order the lights themselves. There's a waiting period for the lights. We're also doing all the legwork as far as permits, finding out what we have to apply for, things of that nature. We've been working on this for probably a year anyway. Started our fundraising when we got the go-ahead from the school about 4 weeks ago. So that's where we are.
Awesome.
Any questions?
No.
All right. Anybody else?
Can you remind us what your request tonight is?
Our quest tonight, the first one is to get a vote from the Pittsford representatives, especially on the Burdett Fund.
You need a majority vote of the
We
school
need,
board.
Yeah.
yes.
So what's the motion you would like?
$20,000. They're looking.
$1,000 is the amount. Hopefully unanimous vote from the Pittsford representatives, a vote from the school board, and then that can go to the select board in Pittsford.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was you feel you're at the point where you want to order lights. And so the question is, what's the lag time to get lights here? And then the other part of my question is that I was hoping that we were clear when you came to ask to fundraise that we really wanted you to have everything in hand so everything could happen all at once, so that we wouldn't, there wouldn't be an issue with funding. You know, we're at the tail end and all of a sudden, you didn't get a pledge, or there, and something's, because we just don't want to end up on the hook for a large amount of money.
Right, you don't want
For
to have
the-
lights and then no way to install them.
Kind of, yeah. So I wanted to make that clear again tonight. But I'm curious as to what is the lag time? Obviously, if you order lights, how long does it take?
We're looking at 10 to 12 weeks for the lights themselves.
Where would they go when they got here?
Probably on the back side of the field would be the safest place.
All right, well, first things first, let's talk about this motion. So Nate and the rest of the football club would like to see someone here on the board make a motion to approve $20,000 to come out of the Burdett Fund to use towards the Otter Valley, Light Up the Valley campaign. So, is there someone here who would like to make that motion?
I can make it if you want.
Brett or Kevin, whichever one. All right, so Brett wants to make the motion,
I can
Yeah, I'll
second
make the
that.
motion for 20,000.
and Brooklyn wants to second it. We'll let them second it. Is there any other discussion while we're here?
So your question confused me. Do you want to wait until the entire amount
So-
of monies are appropriated by the committee?
It's, how do I want to do this? Wasn't a problem, but when Markowski Field was put into place, at the very end as things were moving in, a bill came in that was not anticipated by either the football club or by us, that ended up getting paid by us. It was rather large, and so the administration is concerned that that could happen again, which I hope it doesn't happen again. I wouldn't think it would happen again, but it is something that we have to be concerned about.
Sure, it's a valid concern.
Yeah. So, and I did see the note from Brenda or from Kate, I think, that said that you do have a potential pool of money coming if the lights are ordered before the start of the season. Is it ordered before the start of the season, or is it?
So we have, I sent the school now for 47,970 that we've had on hand,
Yep.
that we've raised. We have in pledges $90,125 additional, bringing us to $139,095. And the lights we'd be ordering are 132, so we're approximately 7,000 over. The large pledge was to, if we order and the permitting is they're permittable to be installed for the 2024 season, and that's a pretty large pledge.
That's right. And is it a pretty large ask too? I mean, as far as getting them installed before, when they say the start of the 2024 season, are they saying September 1st?
Fall season,
Yeah,
that's
fall
when-
season.
Yeah. Okay. So that was my concern about that, Kevin.
Okay, I'm still confused.
They would not be ordering the lights. The money is coming into the school system, and so we would actually be ordering the lights to come in.
Okay, but this is not for the entire project, the cement, the stands and all that?
Right. No, they're just talking about ordering lights, not the whole project.
Do we have a contractor lined up?
The total cost of the project is
Yeah.
$250,000.
That's why I was confused.
Right. Yeah, the first step was to get enough money in hand to order the lights because of the waiting period.
Thank you.
You know, we've talked to other businesses and contractors that are on board, ready to, because it's gonna be a bid process, go through the bid process, whether it be cement work or excavation or electrical work, that legwork's already been done.
Okay.
Poles aren't part of the lights, that's all separate.
Poles are part.
Poles are part of
It's
the
a part of the
lights.
lights.
Yes, sir.
130, whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
What happens if they don't get in by that September 1st date?
You could potentially lose that.
That's a $50,000 pledge, so that's a big one we didn't want to lose.
Well, so I'm saying, what would happen, let's say you're all set to go, but you can't get a contractor to actually get here for September 1st? Like everything's sitting here waiting, ready to go, and then like in this day and age, it's pretty standard that you can't necessarily get an electrician here.
Yeah, well, I like to think that the people that we've talked to, the businesses that we've been in, in communication with, they know the timeline, they know it's not I'm not gonna say it's a sense of urgency this year, but that's our goal, and everybody's been on board with that for probably the last 6 months in an earnest way. I mean, people are committing their time and their, whatever their services are.
And so that 50,000, is that part of the number you listed?
Yes.
For purchasing the lights, for
Yes.
getting them here?
Will that money come in before it's completed, though?
It would have to come in to order the
order
lights.
them, yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna have to come in before.
And they know that.
Before we
Okay.
order the lights, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of these pledges, the people that can do some of the work, is that what you're saying?
That was just
Those
cash
are just
pledges.
cash pledges.
Oh, but none of the people have like electrical,
Oh, no, that's a whole separate, that's in-kind donation, people that want to do excavation, people that do the electrical, people that do, the concrete. We've talked to the majority of those people well in advance.
And the 20,000 from the Burdett Fund is not included in this 90,000 in pledges, because
correct.
you don't know about that yet.
Correct, we don't know about that.
Okay, all right.
About 100 short still.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay.
we have a GoFundMe page.
I saw that, actually. So,
Yeah, we're chasing all the avenues.
yeah, they hit me up tonight, so I have to do my pledge.
There you go.
There you go. And I'll pass it around to everybody else here, too. I'll make a photocopy.
Another question, have you guys talked to Efficiency Vermont about rebates on lighting?
Yes. The problem being is with the limited use, they may be willing to do something, but it's not gonna be a lot because of the fact of the limited use of the field. Obviously, it's not a daily use, so.
Is that just based on football or everything that would go on here?
That was kind of based on a rough idea, just standard hours for, I think we calculated in football home games, soccer games, and I think and lacrosse as well, right? For that
Yes.
time, so, just to give them an idea. But it still wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a lot just because of the limited use of the field, so.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
Other questions for Nate, Kate, and the rest of the group?
I want to say I'm impressed by your fundraising, in a very short time since we last saw you. It's good work.
Group effort, small group, but group effort.
Yeah.
I think the community's behind it too, there's a lot of good, a lot of encouragement when you're talking to people.
Are we ready to vote? Okay. So I would like a show of hands, so the motion is to request $20,000 out of the Burdett Fund for the use, for Markowski Field, lights. So all of those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. You've got your hand up too, Barbara?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's up.
so it is unanimous. Look at that. Thank you. All right, so it was well worth the wait, right?
It was worth the wait.
All right. So what we will do is forward this to the select board, and then probably at least the Pittsford, hopefully one or two of the Pittsford board members, and probably myself will go to be there with you when for the second half of this.
Thank you very much.
Okay? All right. Thank you. And you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
You know what, I got something I gotta do.
All right,
Gotta go
thanks
wash
so
your
much.
truck.
I know you've asked us 3 times, that's it.
Happy New
Yeah,
Year.
go wash your
Happy
truck.
New
I gotta
Year
wash
to
the
you
truck,
too.
That's right.
All right, so we're gonna move on. So Otter Valley Policy for Action, which is our second reading and to adopt, we brought this forward from December, which is the Ely Fund Investment Policy, Policy DA. Can I get someone to make the motion to approve? I think that was Fernanda and then Natalie as a second. Okay. Brenda, we had asked you last time to come back or talk, and we asked you to do something. That's
Check with the attorney.
Check with the attorney. There we go. See, new year, my mind is blank. All right, so I'm going to send this to you.
I did check with the attorney, and the attorney said there is no problem adding the word board after school district. It's implied. It doesn't change the intent or the policy in any way. So you are welcome to add that word if you'd like.
Okay. So what's your pleasure? Leave it as is, or does someone want to make an amendment to add that word?
I think it's fine.
Okay.
I agree with the attorney.
Well, I was gonna say, hearing nothing, we leave it the way it is. Okay. So all in favor of Policy DA, Ely Fund Investment Policy as revised, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those that are opposed? Okay. Thank you for that. We're gonna keep with Brenda tonight.
Point of order, I
yeah.
don't think we approved the minutes from the
Yes, we did as part of the consent agenda.
night. That was in- oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. The next piece, we're gonna stick with Brenda. We had asked her to do an overview of all of our funds that we have here in OVUU, including the non-trust funds. So, if Brenda, if you're ready and willing and able, I'll turn it to you.
Well, I would love to be ready, willing, and able, but I haven't completed it yet. So I'd ask that you table that until next week
Sure, not a problem.
or until your next meeting, whatever works for you.
And yeah, not a problem. We will move that to another meeting. Let's talk about the budget then. Want to talk about the budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, excuse me. I'm sorry I'm not there. I'm recovering from COVID. That was my Christmas gift this year, which is a pleasant gift, to say the least. So today I came back, we went through all of the various emails from the state and put together a PowerPoint that will kind of just walk you through where we are, where we're at, and kind of set the stage for questions you might have so we can get back to you before next week's meeting so that we can move towards adopting the budget next week. Thank you, Kristen. So we have met as an admin council or administrative compass team and come up with some proposed reductions under the spending cap. Just to remind you of where we were, where we're at, how we got there, and what we're proposing. So we left in December 12th, I believe, or the 19th, I can't remember the day, I apologize. If you look down to the middle column, on the bottom, we were looking at needing to reduce the budget or increase revenues by $457,000. So I'm going to talk a lot about draft 1 to draft 3 because there's the only difference between draft 1 and draft 2 were the Rutland Northeast assessment numbers were plugged in, but no programmatic changes were made, no additional information from the state in regards to vocational education was provided at that time. So those are really, there's no change between draft 1 and draft 2. There is no change between draft 1 and draft 2, except preliminary Rutland Northeast assessment. So just to put this in context and revisit what's in draft 1 for you before we start talking about the things that we have proposed removing from draft 1 to come under the cap is 1%, just some general information. The 1% of the budget is $241,000. Salaries have been updated for the master agreement, consumer price index for negotiations. Benefits, I think we've all heard the health insurance premium increases are up 16.4%. For that, for us, including existing positions and new positions, that's about 2 points, $500,000 on our budget. There's a new payroll tax, Act 76 childcare. That's another $51,000 that's included into the budget. And then supplies, utilities, professional development, professional services, they've been adjusted based on actual cost. Contracts plus our best guess or estimate on cost of living if we don't have multi-year contracts. And then, excuse me, so then site by site. So the additions and reductions by school, and these were in the order of the principal's priority. So for Lothrop, there was only one programmatic change, and that was increasing one classroom teacher, which was formerly funded with ESSER. This did, however, bring classroom sizes down to 9 and 10. Nashville has an increase of about $261,000. One is adding a dean of students, and the other one is adding an assistant principal, shifting from ESSER, and eliminating one paraeducator position. So it's a net number. Otter Creek Academy is an increase of $424,000. That is adding a classroom teacher based on class sizes. So we are graduating a class of 7 with an incoming class of 15 projected, and so we can no longer do a multi-age grouping like we have been able to do for the last few years. Federally shifting the nurse, 100% nurse, from ESSER into the general fund, and adding 1.6 academic interventionist again into the general fund, formerly funded with ESSER funds, as well as consolidated federal grant funds. And then adding about $5,700 to for classroom furniture to outfit the new class. Otterville Union Middle High School, we have some federal shifts of about 572 with some local reductions. So we are looking at a net increase of $308,000. That means adding an instructional coach to support new teachers, adding social emotional learning professionals, spending money on an academic interventionist for English language arts and trading it off against an open academic intervention math position that hasn't been filled, and adding a restorative practices professional and eliminating an open intervention specialist paraeducator and a part-time paraeducator to offset those costs. Include an assistant principal, eliminating the dean of students, add a school day shuttle for the Foothills and the career school to work programming, add a 9th grade transition camp in the summer, helping 8th grade students be prepared and transition to the 9th grade, and increasing the athletic budgets based on current BPA cost structure, which were adjusted upward for the same reason we are having, and that has a lot to do with the job market. One of the questions that was asked at the last meeting, excuse me, was where or what did we do with the ESSER shifts? What positions did we shift in and what did we not? So in the first budget, again, we're only talking about the first budget at this time, we shifted in a class size reduction teacher at Lothrop, a dean of students, an assistant principal at Nashville, with some offsetting reductions in a local paraeducator. Shifted in the nurse and an academic interventionist at Otter Creek Academy. And then Nashville, again, we did a lot of shifting in and reducing some local costs. So we shifted in the instructional coach, social emotional learning professional. We added English language arts, academic interventionist, and reduced the math academic intervention positions, which blocked out. We added restorative practices and eliminated an open intervention specialist and para-educator part-time positions. And then we added the assistant principal and eliminated the dean of students. And then just as an FYI, there was some shifting in ESSER from into the Rutland Northeast General Fund as well. So we did shift a communications coordinator as well as education, professional development, and workforce development. And then for special education, we shifted an elementary special ed coordinator and an out-of-district LEA and a school-based mental health coordinator.
I'm thinking that's a K that's missing in the software shifts, not $42, right?
It'd be nice, but it probably is a K.
Yeah.
If there's to be a K there, yeah. Thank you. So the admin compass team met last week, whenever, before the holidays, and kind of came to some consensus. They determined that we should eliminate elementary French, leaving about $152,000 in 2 positions, 1 position that is already open. Eliminate the restorative practice position at the high school and continue to eliminate the positions that help offset the cost of adding that position. Eliminate the extra classroom at Lothrop. Reduce an 80% physical ed open position for a retirement and replace it with a 50% position. Saves a lot of money because it saves a lot in health insurance. And then we eliminated the OCA academic interventionist. Eliminate's not really the right word. We are moving it to consolidated federal funds and eliminating a coach. So we're removing it from the Otter Valley budget and putting it in the consolidated federal grants budget at the supervisory union office, eliminating another coach. So in addition to this, there's just really been 2 other changes. We did get information on vocational education. We got the final numbers, version 3. They were coming in rapid fire with changes. And we have also updated the Rutland Northeast assessment a second time. So remember the only difference between the December 5th and the December 12th budgets were the assessments. So we have updated them from the December 12th based on the long-term weighted average version that the agency placed on December 29th. For our policies, I think it's later on this agenda, that would be the version we would use for assessment because at some point we have to be able to finalize and move forward. And then still outstanding is our common level of appraisals, and literally just before I logged on, I got a notice from the state that those are hot off the presses. I haven't opened them up yet to see what they might say. So here's kind of a recap of where we are and what the guardrails or the targets are. So the first column is the recalculated fiscal year 24. So if the long-term weighted average ADM for pupil mechanism existing in 24, that column will be the result of how much our spending was. And so the education spending towards the, for LTM ADM would be 11,500. That's the base, that's the beginning of the guardrail. And so the guardrail is, should our spending in for 25 not exceed that number by more than 10%, then our homestead tax rate will be capped at a 5% increase. So the December 12th budget had a bigger increase, as you can see in the highlighted number there, in the preliminary long-term weighted ADM. And so we were under the cap. But then December 12th, the long-term weighted ADM went down in version 2 by about 30 children, and our assessments were incorporated. So at that point, that is your first slide, that's where we were recognizing about $457,000 in reductions made. And then in column 3, where we are today, with the reductions that we've made on that prior slide, we have reduced $520,000 in expenditures, and additional revenues came in just a smidgen shy from what we had projected in December by 7,000. We lost a couple of more pupils, but we are now kind of at that level number. We lost less than 2 long-term weighted average daily member pupils, but feel confident that that number is not going to surprise us any, or not drastically anymore. So the spending limit is at 12,638. Our target that we can't go over is 12,650. So we are at $11 per student under the spending limit, or $24,000.
That's quite the chess game.
Questions for Brenda?
I think there's one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Not on mine.
One second.
That must be it.
Okay, so the only thing I don't now get is the final long-term weighted average number. That won't change the assessment, assuming you adopt a policy as drafted. But it might change that number, which could change our per pupil spending. So I would monitor that and make sure that if that changes, that we reflect our budget to make that happen as well. Again, I heard that they would come out with another version this afternoon. Hasn't come out yet. And I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic that because the drop in per pupils was only less than 2 between the 2 versions, that we're kind of at that stable point where I would expect to see a major change in that number.
So, Brenda, I have a question about the number of pupils. I know that you and Alexis can usually go in and look and find people that they've lost, or however. Is that possible in this new weighted system, or how do they determine if our numbers go down or up?
Yes, yes, and we have both with Will Chapman Hale and Jess Morris Davis also been looking at them. So there's a lot of components to the new weighting system, but it does start with the number of students. And so we work together to look at those students and analytically see if there's anything that jumps out at us, like if they've changed in a grade, something we can't reconcile, and then we'll start diving in to be able to reconcile it and calling our school secretaries to help us when we can. So we spent quite a bit of November doing that, and we did find over 30 students that had, for various different reasons, not been reported and recorded correctly. They have been showing up correctly. So those were all fixed. We then also, the Agency of Education, because it's new for them this year too, is recognizing kind of reconciling between the actual 27 definitions of English language learners and how to apply that into the calculation. We've had to do a couple of other collections and search into those, so we feel really confident that we captured those. Thankfully, we're not a winning team or brilliant. So our numbers of ELO students, while it's an important weighting factor, is it's something we could easily capture and we're able to capture. Then there's a whole lot that we can't capture. I can't verify sparsity. I can verify the free and reduced. So there's, I would say there's probably about 80% of the formula that you definitely spend a lot of verifying.
Okay, thank you. Fernanda?
You mentioned free and reduced. That's been kind of a difficult situation since people aren't necessarily applying. Are you able to get applications in? Are you pretty confident that that number is what it needs to be?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's always a challenge. And one of the things that the state of Vermont did this year was they allowed another direct certification mechanism to be counted for free and reduced. And that's the biggest reason why you see the jump in those first two columns between what our long-term weighted average CBM was when it was recalculated in fiscal year 24, that 2,000 to the 2,148 in the first draft of 2024, is because beginning this September, we were able to pick up those students. The other thing that has nicely happened that the agency has gotten waiver for and approval for is we can now, with those higher directly certified students, so they parents don't have to fill out paperwork with us in addition to any other resources that they may be receiving at the state level, we are able to tap into that. It means that we are now eligible for the PEP program, which means we, beginning now, no longer have to collect free and reduced applications. And when students purchase meals, free reimbursable meals, not all part, so they no longer have to indicate their name, number, it's not done by student anymore. The whole community is now eligible. And next year, we will be able to use the household income form that we did distribute to all of our families this year, encouraging every family to apply. That form is a lot more user-friendly than the federal free and reduced application. And the results of it go directly to agency education, so we don't have to be as invasive. It's not as invasive, it's much more anonymous. And then they will tell us or help us with directly certifying some of our members. So yeah, there's never a perfect way to get those applications. So the agency of education has been working really hard to try to use other poverty measures to increase students that they can directly certify that do not require families to fill out free and reduced applications.
The baseline number, that to me seems like it could be inaccurate, kind of what we're talking about, right? Where it's, especially last year, there really was no reason to get those forms filled out for free and reduced. So, I mean, what went into calculating that baseline, and do we believe that's accurate? Or, I guess I'm curious the process of how they determined that.
So that baseline, that 2038, that's what you're talking about, you're referencing?
Yeah, the 11,500.
Yeah, that, we don't have any choice over that. That's pretty much, it was a point in time. It was based on how well our free and reduced applications were last year. And, that's the way we have no way to change that.
Other questions?
I have lots of questions.
Okay, keep going.
Is there a spreadsheet? I know that there's usually a spreadsheet that kind of breaks down by school and then what the district spending is. Will we get an updated copy of that at some point?
Yeah. And so I will, between now and hopefully Wednesday or sooner, I will update the class size projections that we had before. I'll update what is really included in draft 3 for recognizing or removing the things that were removed, that were added, right? So that's kind of a weird thing. Between draft 1, they were added. By draft 3, they were taken out. So they will look like they didn't exist in draft 3. But I'll provide that information and then the standard reports that you usually want.
That's probably the end of my Brenda questions. I would like to know a little bit about how we arrived at those things being what we wanted to cut, because it seems like those are all student-facing. And I would like to know the difference between a dean of students and a assistant principal on the benefit to the students versus, I mean, I know it's more money and it's a full year-round position, but anyway, I'd like to know some more things about that. And then also, I would say it is tough to talk about this because we just got this updated budget presentation like 5 minutes before the meeting. And then also, I would like to ask the question of, if we were to say we don't like how much our NESU board put forth for their budget, do we have a method to go back and say, sharpen your pencil?
It's already been approved.
Okay.
So there is no going back. That has to be, the RNESU budget has to be approved by December 15th in order to get OVUU and BUU's budgets done for January.
But the information we had then has changed, since then has changed, right? So that's unfortunate.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
'Cause now we're looking at cutting teacher positions, which,
Well, we're not, why don't you let Kristen talk about how they came to, I'm assuming that you
Yeah,
don't
so,
mind.
and we do have, most of our principals on here with us as well. Brian's on there, both Brian, Vicky, and, Brenda are all sick. Stacy is, the new interim principal at Lothrop. So they have all been, and we've sort of shared this, although we continue to get brand new information week to week, our administrative team have been having these conversations since last year. So yeah, last week, last Tuesday, when Brenda presented the information that $540,000 that we had to cut, that was a surprise to everyone. So immediately after the meeting, the entire administrative Compass team sat down together and said, all right, what are we going to do? How do we make this work in a way that has the least amount of impact on our students in our schools? And RNESU did cut things. Like one of the places that you saw, we're pulling something out of OCA's budget to push it into CFP, right? So RNESU is the one who sort of oversees the federal positions. As a central office team, we had 5 instructional coaches. We'll be down to 2 next year. So there are some pretty significant reductions that are happening at the central office level as well. But sort of what ended up happening, and the principals are sort of on the call, is we looked at the budget all together. And Barstow is also a part of it, because when we pull something out of RNESU central office, that also has a ripple on Barstow and what they're able to do as well. So we sat down for a couple of hours last Thursday before the holiday recess and said, okay, here are our numbers. Here are all of the positions that we fund federally through ESSER. Here are all of the positions that we fund through CFP. Here's everything that you've proposed in your budget. Principals could also go back to their budget, even if you've had something historically. Say, Otter Valley has historically always had a dean of students. Michael Ruppel and OB was able to sort of go back and say, you know what, this isn't really what we prioritize. So as a team, the team sort of made the decision. And one of the first places that we decided to, again, make some reductions were cutting instructional staff at the central office. So we'll pull some OCA staff in to put that in federal funds. Elementary Spanish, Brenda's COVID brain said it was French, it's actually elementary Spanish. Although that is a fabulous program, the research really shows to be impactful in the way that we want it to be, it really has to be much more immersive than we're able to make it happen. Like our elementary kids are getting Spanish once a week. That's not making a difference. So our principals, and again, the curriculum team had to have a tough conversation. We really do want to support that, but next year when we know we have to cut $540,000, that was not a single one of our elementary principals' priorities. Lothrop's classroom teacher, things are tough, right? Like things are really tough sort of across the board with a lot of our students' behaviors and mental health. But having class sizes at 9 isn't going to be what ends up moving the needle on social emotional health and sort of mental health. So all of those conversations happen. All of the people who are sitting right now on the computer screen have been a part of the conversation all along and continue to be. So what they are prioritizing, what we are prioritizing is in fact the people in front of the kids, academic interventionists, classroom teachers, who else do we have? Special educators, mental health professionals. Those are the people who still remain in our budgets.
I guess, and I'm not being critical, I'm just asking questions, right? Because there's a lot of things I don't understand, like the difference between a dean of students and an assistant principal and what the benefit is to the students. Or like Neshby, for example, are those positions redundant? Is it something we could hire one this year and one next year? I don't know. I'm just asking questions because.
Have them both this year.
Yeah, okay. But
Yeah.
one's ESSER funded, right? Yeah.
They're both ESSER funded, actually. And next year, we will also have a brand-new Neshabie principal. So, yeah, I think as a team, we sort of agree. And they function very differently, right? So at Otter Valley, they have a dean of students who I don't even think is being replaced. That person now is at Neshabie as the assistant principal. That's very discipline-heavy, hazing, harassment, bullying, sort of entering information. At Neshabie, that's not the way the dean of students functions. And I think Fernanda asked a little while ago, what's the model that, you're sort of going with? At Neshabie, the dean of students really is sort of in charge of social emotional learning, restorative practices. She is very student-facing. She has student groups. Like she constantly has students in her office. The assistant principal is, to be very honest, with a school of 500 kids, they probably need one principal and one assistant principal. So it's an administrative role for sure. And if we had other schools that were Neshabie and Otter Valley size, we probably would be having that conversation. They're just the only two that sort of exist that way. So they're the only ones that need that admin structure.
And a Lothrop-specific question. You say class sizes of 9. My understanding is the added teacher was for what would be the 5th grade, which I think would not be class sizes of 9.
I don't have the chart, Brenda, do you? And Stacy, if folks haven't met her, Stacy Farrington, hello, is our interim principal. So she's new, but she's been there for a couple of weeks. What are the class sizes? I don't have the chart.
Kind of pulling it up, Kristen.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying.
Restorative practices person? That was Otter Valley. Do we still have somebody on staff who's trained in restorative practice?
There's a lot of people around the district who are trained in restorative practices. And I think, again, same thing with elementary Spanish. Do we see a value in that? Yup. Do we wish that we didn't have to cut $540,000 to stand under the guardrail? Yes. But that ended up being something that Mr. Ruppel thought they can make do without. Again, it's our hope that sort of things shift and we can put elementary Spanish back in the future and maybe restorative practices back in the future. But there are people on staff. Mr. Jones, who's the AP, actually is fully trained and has done a lot with that.
And were you able to find that? I was. Do you want me to? Yeah, because it's a shift from this year's current structure with classroom teachers, so. Can I take the screen and share it? Sure. Are you seeing this?
Yes?
Yes. So this is the very first one. So it has, class sizes. Grade 2 has 19 kids. If you have 2 teachers in grade 2, that means you have one class with 10 and one class with 9. Grade 1 has 21 kids, you're looking at 11 kids each. Grade 4 has 22 kids, you're looking at 11 kids each. Lothrop is a struggle because it's just on that borderline, and it makes it really challenging to decide how to do that. We'd really like about 4 more kids per grade, and then it would be nice and easy. But until we get 4 or 5 more kids per grade, we're always going to be kind of struggling with this balance. And if just a reminder, this is what our class size policy is. It does say in K3 that, we have a minimum of 12 kids. And so when you have 2 classes, 3 classes on average under that. That's why it became one of the things that made it to the list. None of them are popular solutions.
Yeah, it just didn't say what grade, so.
Yeah, you want me to go over this? This will be updated for next week as well. So I'll touch base with Stacy and look at my notes, but I do think that it was great for that would go to 122, but I can't remember, to be honest.
It was at younger grade level that was going to be 10 and 9. So the 19 is the second grade. It was the second grade. And also, I did check with Sarah just for informational purposes. Right now, we have 15 students registered for kindergarten. So that number, of course, can go up, but that's where we're at the moment. Or looking to register, I should say.
Brent, you had a question?
Yeah, like Brad, I don't know a whole lot about it. The ESSER, that was all COVID money, right? So a lot of these positions we didn't even have before COVID. And so, I mean, is there data that shows that all these positions we're trying to keep? How'd we manage without them before? And now all of a sudden we have them, and we're fighting to make sure that we keep them and upgrade them and pay more for them by changing their name, basically. I mean, are they necessary?
I guess I'm not totally sure how to answer your question or what you're asking. There are many positions that we added in ESSER that we are, in fact, not continuing with, including instructional coaches, right? So we had 5 instructional coaches. We had 2 technology integration coaches. We had, right? So a lot of those were great because we had the money and we wanted to be able to support kids and teachers during COVID learning, during distance learning. But yeah, the data shows that's not what's most impactful to our kids. What's most impactful to our kids are people who, like Brett said, are people who are student facing, directly working with our kids every day. So do we have data at the school level to sort of support why every principal made the decision to prioritize what they did? Yes, we do. Which is why we started those conversations last year. So several times this fall, we made every single principal sit down with all central office leaders together and say, show us your priority list and what's the data that you're using to sort of show why this is most important to your school. So yeah, we did. And again, I think Brenda sort of said this, none of this is ideal, right? Like, we would love to be sitting here and saying that the first draft we presented to you was within the guardrails, because that was the budget that our principals felt really good about. These were hard conversations. No one wants to make these reductions. And, again, we feel like this is going to have the least impact of all of the potential scenarios that we looked at.
When do the guardrails run out?
5 years.
And Brett asked this question last time, and I either didn't hear the answer, I'm not sure he got one. What are our expectations about financially what happens when those guardrails run out? Are we going to have another huge level of decisions about cuts or increased budgets, or is there any planning for that expectation?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Kevin, and I think this is a statewide problem, right? And when you also think about the guardrails, someone's still paying for that other sort of percentage. Brenda, did you want to? This is definitely your lane.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and excuse me. Sorry about that. I think, so first of all, one thing I want to remind you is the guardrail's a one-way street. So when you blow by it's over with them. You don't get it until the next 2029. You don't get it for the 5 years. So definitely coming into it on year 1, I think it's important that we stay within the guardrails, because it's all new, right? It's all converging. The extra funds are going away and the new count of people just coming into play. So the more flexibility we can to position ourselves to obviously meeting the immediate needs of students, but also position us so we're not disadvantaged in making decisions next year when presumably we won't be shifting as many funds into the district or into the schools and costs, and we'd be looking at more maintenance and tweaking and changes, would position us well. But yeah, we could not continue to increase our budget by 10% over the next 4 years and expect to pass a budget in 2029. So at some point, there's going to be a time, and I'm presuming that this will be the year where we see the biggest increase, but there will be a time when we have to balance that. And as Kristen said, this is a statewide issue. This is why the commissioner in Texas letter was, kind of raising red flags. It didn't address or talk about the guardrails, but it did say, when spending continues like this, it's a small piece of sustainable.
Well, I want to start by saying thank you, Brenda, for that magic with the $11.50. That was impressive in its own way. I'm not going to second guess the administrative team about individual positions. I know those decisions were really hard. And to get to Brent's point, I volunteered enough in this building and to a much lesser extent at Neshabie in the last year since COVID to know that the children need these interventionists and supervision and counselors and all these other positions. We collectively, I think, on this board and throughout the nation, did a bad job in COVID. And we didn't know how bad the repercussions would be, and we're stuck with them now. So we're in this financial pinch. At the same time, the needs of the kids are higher than ever, or appear to be higher than ever to me. So it's really, I know we're asking, Brenda's job is just to get us through this budget cycle right now. So these questions about 5 years from now are kind of unfair in a way, but we need to be thinking about that. And it's disingenuous of the governor to pretend he doesn't understand what a perverse incentive is. And the same thing for the education commission, or whatever the title is. I don't understand why people in Montpelier are pretending that they didn't know that this was going to happen, because every school board in the state's making the same decisions we are right now. It's bewildering to me that position's been stated even. And the last thing I want to say is this gets to Brett's comments earlier, one of our basic problems is the Frankenstein nature of our supervisory unit. We're tethered to another board that has zero interest in this building, that has zero interest in creating a middle school, that has its own priorities. We're stuck with the budget decisions that board made. As I've said before, the RNESU board, I think, violates the 14th Amendment because Mendon and Chittenden together are smaller than Pittsford. So the idea of one person, one vote it's completely thrown out the window with this arrangement. And then the last point about that is 6 or 7 years ago when, what was it, Act 49 passed, one of the things that we were told, one of the selling points was, oh, we're going to have Spanish immersion school. We can do all sorts of wonderful things. Now we don't even have a Spanish teacher, looks like next year. So we are like Wile E. Coyote on a rocket motorcycle still tied to the boulder. And the boulder's going to come smack us at some point in the next 5 years, and we got to get ready for it. So for this year, I'm going to be a good boy. I'm going to vote yes, but these trends are all horrible, and they're going to smack us, and we got to be thinking about that.
I would say that I don't think that RNESU doesn't care about OVUU. We have board members here who sit on that board, so
50% of that board.
I would say that they're not, that there are people there who are thinking about it.
But they voted based off numbers that changed like the next day, so that's really unfortunate. I mean, that's not their fault. Someone at the
Right,
state
so
should have
let's
gotten
not-
us the
let's
numbers
not
ahead of
place
time, but.
Blame where it shouldn't go, right? Like-
No, but I-
Exactly where I meant it was.
Well, except just remember, RNESU doesn't have students, so their budget isn't created in the same way, right? So RNESU exists because they provide the unified supervisory services, curriculum. Debbie Alexander comes out of there, Marcia comes out of there, transportation, those things come out. So the things that impact BUU and OVU's budget related to the long-term student waiting membership don't impact RNESU's budget. It is a different board, so they weren't waiting for the same sort of information that you all were waiting for, just to be.
Well, yeah, and I'm not saying that they did anything wrong. Maybe nothing would have changed. I'm just saying that the numbers changing after that is very unfortunate for us. That was the point I was trying to make. And even as we sit here today, we don't have all the numbers. And I don't even understand how the common level of appraisal factors into all this, or if it does or doesn't at all.
You'll find out next week.
So,
But this has been institutionally what we have done forever in education, the way the funding goes. We never approve budgets with the numbers that we need, never. In all the years that I have been an educator in Vermont, never have we had the numbers we need by the time that the boards have to approve their budgets. It is always a gambit. I mean, it's the way it has been.
And that's a state
It
thing.
doesn't make
Yeah.
it doesn't make it.
It definitely
yeah,
is.
It's a state thing.
Legislature.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
exactly.
make
but
it
it
right.
speaks to a serious issue, and we have to come up with a budget, and then it changes.
But we can't fix that.
But
Talk
that's
to your
all-
state
that-
legislators
that's
to fix that.
Yeah, that's
We were
state.
supposed to have them in, and that got canceled. But, yeah.
Well,
it's-
reschedule, because you could change that.
I mean, and I realize we're not going to fix it here, but these are the problems that make it really tough, especially in a year where, I don't know, where's the extra 7% or 5% or whatever we don't spend, or we spend above the guardrails? Where's that going to come from? Has the state said that? Because unless they have a rainbow with a pot of gold at the end of it, it's going to have to come from somewhere.
I have a quick, easy question. The OCA has furniture as a line item. How come that's on this budget and not in the facilities fund? Or coming out of the facilities budget?
Yeah, the facilities budget is capital improvements, and classroom furniture doesn't meet the definition
Okay.
of capital improvements.
Thanks.
Other questions for Brenda or Kristen? Okay, so we will table this discussion till next week, because then Brenda will have the information for CLA, so we will see how this will impact each town's tax rate. And hopefully we can vote then. See. All right. So we will not do the district warning now, because we don't do the district warning until we approve the budget. The next thing is the annual board report, which I'm not sure what that's on it, unless you guys have other things you want me to put in the report that we talked about this last time, about the things that I will, my letter to. Okay, so I'm gonna move on past that. Continue discussion and finalize board goals. So we haven't talked about this in a long time. It really has everything to do with, where we see us moving forward. We talked about that we wanted to continue to look at a middle school model. We also talked about, being more communicative, that's the wrong word, or I can't say it. Providing more communication, or having more communication with our citizenship. This year, probably more than ever, that needs to be done, especially around our budget and guardrails and 5% and 10% and CLAs. But anyway, so I'd like to continue that discussion, if you're up for it. Or if you think we really should wait until after budget season. But then we're moving into February.
It's on the agenda. I feel like we should
All right.
go forward.
Well, there you go. You're on. No. Okay, so as far as where we were the last time with this middle school model, we were going to bring back the, and I don't think that's in your packet, so I don't think we can do that easily, is we were going to show you the two versions of the middle school model that we had drawn up. One was adding on here at Otter Valley, the other one was actually having a separate building. So we'll have to do that next meeting. I'll have Melinda pull that stuff and send it out to you guys. But communication would be key. I think that's something we really need to talk about. I have spoken with Kathy Mathis, who said that she would love to have representatives from the board to their two dinners that they have. They have one monthly lunch and they have one monthly dinner. They get different people at both. She would love to have us there to speak to the budget, because those are people who aren't necessarily in the schools. They're older people, senior citizens, who may not be attached to the school like we are, who might like to hear from us. We could also do some sort of writing in the Brandon Reporter. Obviously, that's been thrown out to us too, to do by George and Stephen Jupiter. So what's your pleasure? If we write something, obviously somebody has to write something, and then we kind of have to approve it as a board. And so if we're going to do that, we need to start that process now.
Maybe we should start the process now, but I don't think we should plan on publishing anything until we're through budget season, because...
Well, not until February.
I don't know.
Well, I think we need to talk about the budget in any communication that we put out, especially, talking about the guardrails. A lot of people don't understand these guardrails or what it's going to do to their budget, or...
Nobody understands.
And maybe the state doesn't understand guardrails, but we have to be able to say, look, our budget's not going to go up more than 5%.
Well, not necessarily, with the common level of appraisal, it could.
Well, right, but that's a second piece after that.
Yeah,
so.
but people don't care about that.
Well, that's true, but again, that's something that you have to explain, and
do
a
we
lot
have
of people don't
someone-
understand.
Brenda who's good at like writing,
Come up
like
with some bullet points. I mean, she's the best one at explaining this. I was even wondering, like, can she do a little video and we post it on the
Yeah, and we
on
did
the
do that.
website.
We did that last year, and we will do it again this year.
Okay.
So we have a road show. We go to all the schools, and she sort of hands out these flyers, and then she'll also put everything on the web, and she'll host a series of online, really not historically well-attended community forums on
Or
it.
put it on Facebook, a video.
I think we're right, and I think we have to go to the people. It's not, we can't ask the people to come to us. It's not going to happen.
I think it's smart to do something in the reporter and like put it in some layman's terms that like regular folks like me can understand and comprehend and get into
Put in there
the
that it could change with that, what that is. I mean, they gotta know that too.
Well, the only thing that I think before we put anything in the reporter, we have to have an approved budget. We have to approve our budget first, so that we can give concrete numbers on how this will affect our townspeople. How will it affect someone in Sudbury?
long as
How
you
will it
don't-
affect someone in...
Well, as long as you don't change after, because if you convince them it's this and it's not gonna change, then it does, well, now you're the bad person.
Well,
Because
right.
you said it wasn't gonna
Right.
change and it did. Because that's just gonna put you in the black eye.
Obviously, at the
Nine
end
times
of
out
the
Is
day.
Brenda still on the call?
Nope.
Oh,
Nope.
she left. Okay.
And it's still proposed until after the towns approve it, so like.
Vote, right. So it's a
once we
proposed
write it, We
budget.
still just write it as a proposed
Proposed,
budget,
yeah, I
and
think.
then that alleviates us saying, this is 100% what's gonna happen.
Right.
We can just, I think it's important to clarify that in whatever we write, saying this is proposed pending towns all approving it.
Well, we need the CLA before we vote, obviously.
Right, and those just came in tonight, she said, and she hasn't even had a chance to look at them.
Yeah. She does a great job, not saying anything negative, if that's how it's coming across. Just that we need it before we vote.
Sure, absolutely. That's why we're not voting tonight. And we don't know if there'll be more information that comes in between now and then, too.
It's changed every other time, so I don't.
Well, that's true. It sure has. Usually at the 11th hour. Okay, so we definitely want to write something in the reporter. Do you want to go to the Senior Citizens Center here in Brandon? Is that something that we as a board want? I don't know how many people we'll see. We could see 40 people at each one, but that's still 80 more people who can go out and talk to other people who can talk to more people. I don't know how else we get out to other communities in something that we can invite ourselves to, or, I mean, because we could have a forum here. I mean, we do. We actually have, you know, the night before you vote, but we don't get a lot of participation. Okay.
It seems like we should find, not necessarily the second, but I think it's worth brainstorming coming back, other places that are not in Brandon.
Yes,
So if
absolutely.
we only go to 2 places and they're in Brandon, that's,
No, you're absolutely right. But the question is where are those places, and how can we get Leicester and Whiting and Sudbury together?
dunk
Goshen.
tank at Hannaford, Paul's in the dunk tank. If they talk to me about the budget, they get to take a shot on
You
the
get to
dunk
take a
tank.
shot at Paul. All right. There you
That was
go.
nice of him to volunteer you for that, Paul.
I know. I'm pretty sure that we're not allowed to solicit in front of Hannaford, so you're off though. So.
It's a great time of year to be going in a dunk tank outside,
Yeah,
too.
right, So, but yeah. Okay. Well, keep thinking about that. We should talk about it more next week as to how we get this out, and we get, you know, maybe there's an email. We can email something to all of our parents, but again, we need to somehow get to the wider community, the ones who aren't part of the school necessarily. I think that's going to be key this time.
Do we have a gauge of like the other districts around us and how they've been affected? I mean, this could just be my perspective, but I feel like from reading in the Herald with Mill River and Rutland, it seemed like they benefited from the new
Yeah, they did.
model. But kind of seems like we did not. I don't know if that's just perspective, but
So Rutland City has a far higher amount of poverty, students on IEPs, EL learners. So yes, it was really favorable for them. It was favorable for us as well. Mill River also has high amounts of poverty, and they have more rural sparsity than we do. Like so there are just different reasons why different districts sort of fare better than others.
I just think it creates this, whether it's accurate or not, I would say it's not accurate, but I mean, if you're reading the paper every day, you say, oh, well, why are my taxes going up by such a high amount where everyone else seemed to be in a good position this year? I think that's a challenge for us.
I'm curious to see how many school boards don't even care about the 5% guardrail and just go for it.
Everybody's going to 9.9, they'd be crazy not to.
Yeah,
But
this
I
year,
guarantee you there'll be ones that go over the 9.9 and don't care, which will also mess
Probably when the
up.
town votes it down, knocks it down, you'll be under the guardrail.
Some places don't do that. You'd be surprised.
Selling a car, start high, work yourself down.
well, you could make an argument to hold ourselves accountable in the future. Going past it wouldn't be the worst thing, because eventually we're going to hit this cliff and we're going to get hit hard if we're not prepared.
I don't know. I've seen some crazy stuff happen. Well, I guess we'll see. All right. Board terms up for election in March. So y'all know. Oh yeah.
Before we move on from the
Sure.
directive, the yearly directives, I brought up one thing however many meetings ago when we discussed this, about feeling like it'd be valuable for us to have an environmental policy that we work on. I would like to reiterate that.
What's your vision for that policy?
I'm gonna bring it. It'll come. We can discuss it in February after all the budget stuff is done. I'll put it on the agenda for then. Okay. Okay. So y'all know who you are. Term limits or term is up, right? Raise your hand. Okay. Y'all know what you got to do before January 29th if you're planning on rerunning. Okay. Those of you who are planning on not rerunning, please let me know, or I hope you have somebody in your back pocket that you hope will run in your stead, because we don't want to have board seats that run with nobody in them. Okay? Oh, and we did put out a feeler for a board candidate information session. If you know anybody who is interested in running for the board, please let me know, because we will have a forum for those people, so that they can find out more about the board. Otherwise, we didn't get anybody who said that they wanted one from our current board, so we won't have a date for that informational session unless there are people that definitely want to come. So it's just really information for potential new board members, or for those board members who are new who would like to get a leg up on their board seat. Okay?
Do we know for sure if there's anyone who's not running again?
It seems like if there's open seats, we should have that, even if no one shows up. because-
Well, right. So that's why I'm asking. You know, you don't have to blurt it out in the middle of a meeting if you don't want to, but I would like to be notified. Or notify Kristen, or notify your next door neighbor or something, but somehow let this board know that you're not running or rerunning or whatever. Okay? All right. RNESU board update. I thought we did that last meeting, so we're skipping it because we've already talked about it. So I'm going to hand the meeting off to Fernanda to talk about OVUHS Hawk Hill.
Wow, okay.
So we scheduled 2 meetings. Both of them did not have a quorum. So I am following up with members to see about their reasons for whether or not they want to be there, you know, if their commitment, renew their commitment to basically to the committee. And if there's open seats, then we'll figure it out. But people have said yes, and then they haven't come. However, I will say that one of the very clear things that needed to happen without necessary approval was the fact that the town plan is way overdue. So the last revision was in 2008. Tessa McGann from the Rutland County Forestry has agreed to start an assessment and start working on a conservation plan update. And we did a walkthrough and with the people who were there, and had a lovely conversation. And Pamela Burlingame from the Vermont Land Trust is aware of the plan. She has to approve it. So she's aware that we're going to get started with gathering information. So Tessa will be updating the topography and geology, natural communities, uses for hiking forestry, and with Josh leading a section on education use. And one of the things that we talked about was the fact that it would be nice to have an event that brings people to Hog Hill and gets them aware also of the covenant and the intention of the land. We talked about signage. Signage is really overdue. It's down. It's very, and one of the issues that Josh was concerned about was mainly the fact that there's where it's okay to hunt and with permission and where it's not, and being afraid that somebody may cross that line unknowingly and get themselves in trouble because the signage is poor. So that's one of the things that we're going to be working on as well. We talked about having some kind of an informational event. And we discussed about not meeting again until we know better who's on the committee. There's I've been charged with looking for more connections to the archaeology. And so I have a few resources that I will be contacting. And Tessa just wrote me today and said that there is also someone who has some funding that may be able to help us that has to do with, let me find her. It's, it's an interesting part of this, hang on. Yeah, it's Luke McNally, who is from the Ruffed Grouse Society. And he looks for maintaining the environment for ruffed grouse, and there's some funding attached to that. So he wants to do a walkthrough and see whether or not this is a project that he would like to get involved with. So we're going to be talking ruffed grouse.
Oh, right.
So it's
Oak grouse.
Oak grouse.
All right.
Anything happening with the bridge?
At this point, nothing. I mean, you know, the biggest issue is like, where does funding come from for these projects, right? So who's got the money? And Tessa's free, and we're gonna see if Rough Grouse Society is willing to get involved, and we're moving slow.
Is Josh concerned about safety during hunting season?
He's concerned about people understanding the rules around the permissions for hunting, and also just being able to wander into the school property line without unknowingly, and then creating a situation, you know, that is accidental but could be concerning. So I think that was the conversation that we had, that we really need to be really clear.
It's all
with-
posted?
It's not, that's just it. All the signs have fallen.
We have to do it every year anyway, right?
Yeah,
Well,
and
that's
it's
the-
not, right, it's not posted correctly. And we talked about this like right in the middle of hunting season, so it wasn't gonna be the time to put the signs up. But we did talk about the posting and where the money would come for the signs and, you know, but again, I'll follow up with you on that. But it is a lovely spot. I totally love it.
Are there like survey markers and all that stuff out there, or if the
Well,
signs are
Tess-
gone, how do
Tess
you
is
know
going to
where
be
to put
looking for that. Even the trail markings are not necessarily up to par, so we talked about that, about marking the trails, you know, updating the map, just being really, you know, giving it just a lift.
What's the cemetery look like?
It's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's perfect.
It's been trimmed.
Yep. Yep.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you know or not. So there was some wood cut there to go to make things for the library. Whatever happened with that? Did it?
So I believe, we know. So
I know that.
So the tables, some of them went for tables, and then there was a leftover. I remember before Derek left.
So what happened is that a bunch of pine was cut or whatever.
Yeah.
And we had two uses for it. One was going to be for table or bookcases, and the other one was going to be for tables. The tables were made. The bookcases, however, the library got impatient and said they needed them right away, so they went ahead and got bookcases elsewhere and said that they were going to take our wood and sell it as a fundraiser, and I said, oh, no, you won't. So that is where, so Len actually got in touch with me probably a week or so ago and said, hey, I've got this pile of lumber that's all rough cut and whatnot. What do you want to do with it? And so this is the perfect time to ask you all what you want to do with it, but I do not want to give it to the library for fundraising.
But we did talk about, at a meeting with Derek here, that we did talk about giving it to the wood shop. And
Yes.
and being able, but what Len wants is he wants it out of his land.
Well, and I
he
don't
wants
blame
it
him for
stored
that.
here.
Yeah, right.
Is it pine?
It is.
It is, I believe so, yes. Yeah. So we'd have to ask.
It's not a
somebody to
big
move it.
pile, but he did say he would like it moved.
Right, well, and I didn't want to just give it away. It was supposed to, it's one thing to take that wood from Hawk Hill and turn it into something that someone can say, oh, these bookshelves are made with Hawk Hill wood. It's another to just sell it to somebody.
Right. And we thought that both Josh's program and the wood shop program.
And Devin's program
And
could,
Devin's program
yeah.
would want it, so how do we go about?
We just have to find someone to move it.
Does the library here need more bookcases?
I don't think so.
I don't know. It's worth
We could, but that's another thing that Devin's program could make here.
Furniture for OC.
So should I contact them?
Yeah, I wonder what
Yes.
it is.
We could commission for a statue.
It makes sense to keep it in
what?
in-house.
Respect.
Why not?
Oh, okay.
He wants to be
All right,
put
all
on a
right.
pedestal.
Okay, right, okay.
Or could I thought it was serious. I drew a
theater
theater.
I know, I was like, that's why I was like, what?
Well, theater, but the school, I guess we're talking about school. Maybe the furniture at Leicester could be made out of pine.
What is the furniture they're looking for?
Well, that's true, so. Okay, so what we need to do then is find someone to move that pile of wood.
Would you like me to follow up with that?
If you don't mind, that would be great. Okay, thank you. We are all in assent that we don't want to just sell it and give the money to the
Well,
library.
the school can use it.
Thank you. Okay. All right, any other questions for Fernanda about Hawk Hill?
Have you thought about, I feel like maybe there's an awareness issue. Like, I didn't know anything about it until I got on the board, so maybe there's an awareness issue. I didn't know if maybe
That's
like
why-
a partnership.
That's why we're talking about doing some kind of an informational event where people can learn about it, maybe creating a brochure, creating something.
What about like working with Pittsford, because they have the trail network, and getting it added to their maps or something too, so people were aware? I don't know, something like that maybe, just to increase awareness.
Is that where the bike trails, where they,
There are no, the bike trails aren't, according to the covenant, that is there, so they couldn't happen. But yes,
I know
that
that
was
was
where it
toward
was
Old Brandon,
discussed.
there was
It
a-
was discussed to put bike
There
trails
was
there.
bike controversy.
There was a
6 or
bike
7
controversy that did not
years. 6 or 7
fly.
People go up on mountain
Yeah.
bikes and
Yeah,
a
it's,
little bit of trail degradation.
yeah, it's a conservation land, so it can't do anything that erodes the land. So that was the reason for no bike trails. Hiking, low impact, it's low impact activities. Hunting, all those things can happen, but
there's a lot of hunting there.
there is hunting there, with permission.
In certain areas. But they don't know what areas they can hunt in.
But it's not very well marked, so we don't
Signs.
want a lot of people out
Don't see
there.
the signs, that's, you're not in the right spot.
Anyway, there is work to be done, and but more than anything, I think, I discovered it just recently, so it would be great to have an informational something or other, some kind of event that happens around Hawk Hill.
I'd be happy to post it and hunt it for you if it makes you feel better.
We'll have some volunteers.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on. Superintendent performance review, monitoring report compliance for RNESU board consideration. So, that's long-winded, but essentially what it is that, the RNESU board will be giving, Kristen her performance review next month. And so, normally what we do is we look at our monitoring report compliance. As you all know, all of the monitoring reports, I think, for the last year have mostly been in compliance.
There's some partial.
There's some partial ones. But if there's anything that you would like the RNESU board to know or to put into their report when they give that to her next month, if you could email me privately or another RNESU board member, which is Barbara or Becky, that would be really great so that we can make sure that those are put into her performance review. Okay. Annual work plan, we've talked about board PD. We're not gonna do any of that, this month in January since we're doing mostly budget stuff. But we will do some PD in February and March. And we will move on to the superintendent report.
Yeah, I mean, really not much because of the December recess. We've been really, really focused on the budget. But I think sort of the big thing that's been happening besides the budget drama is related to hiring updates. We have several key positions that are open for next year. So the Lothrop principal position, again, you met Stacy virtually. Stacy's filling through the end of June this year. We have posted the 24-25 position already. We already have a couple of applicants, actually. That's only been up a couple of days. So we will likely begin reviewing resumes at the end of January, beginning of February. For a principal search, we do ask for parent reps, teacher reps, support staff, and we do staff community forums for them as well. So any board member is certainly welcome to hop on the staff forums. Neshabie principal search is a little bit ahead of that, and they're currently interviewing candidates right now. Marcia Bruce, as you all know, is sadly retiring. We've interviewed several candidates. And we will hold tours and staff forums on Thursday, January 11th. So we have 2 candidates that we've told the RNESU community about. So folks are definitely also able to hop on those. And then generally speaking, just as an FYI, we post most postings for teaching and staff vacancies after the budget. But anything that we know that we need that position, like no matter what is going to happen, we do post those earlier. So some of those are already up right now. And then I think the only other thing to mention to folks is, as I said to you, as I've repeatedly sort of shared with you, we do get a feature in the Rutland Herald every 6 weeks. We've linked that there. We just had another feature, and George Field from the Brandon Reporter said, "Why are you not doing that with us?" So next week we're going to start also being featured in the Brandon Reporter. So
Cool.
that's it.
All right, so we do have a special meeting next week, Tuesday, January 9th, here at 6 o'clock. Hopefully we can approve a budget. If not, we will do it on Tuesday, January 16th. Yeah, and we will still have Tuesday, January 16th, even if we approve a budget on the 9th, because we have some presentations that are being asked of us to be held on January 16th. So, next Tuesdays, be here, be square, 6 o'clock. And there is no need to have an executive session tonight. So if you're all willing, we can adjourn at 7:30 tonight. By consensus, of course.
What just happened?
Yes, no? Sounds good. Okay, I was like, you want to stay? All right, there we go.